Hey, yo, what it is and what's good, y'all? Welcome back to 280 Plus, the social media podcast where I take the conversation off the timeline and go beyond the post. I'm your host, Los Def, and I'm back here for episode 210 of the platform. Thank you for being here. If you're new to the channel, why don't you just start off by hitting that like button, hit that subscribe button, right? Like, let's help the algorithm. If you want to be a part of the conversation, just leave a comment below, and I'll get back to you. And whatever it is, we can debate a little bit. You could just tell me something that you like, something that you enjoyed, something that I can improve upon, whatever it is. And then if you know anybody that's interested in some of the content that we're talking about, then you can share that content, right? Hit that share button and send them the link, man. Like, let's keep it going though. But yeah, I'm glad to be back for another episode. And in this week's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about some NFL surprises. So I kind of started that conversation last week. In my last episode, I kind of started that conversation, but we're going to kind of get into some other teams that have really been showing development and that have really been growing and have almost like created their own identities as teams. And we'll talk about teams that are surprisingly bad and also teams that are surprisingly good. So I do want to talk about that. We're going to talk about a post that I seen and some that have to do with some statistics in terms of the states and what states are the most comfortable to live in terms of income, right? Basically, the affordability and how affordable these states are to live in. So it is ranked from most expensive to least expensive. So we'll get into that and just some commentary about that. We'll also talk about why certain people of different ideologies, and obviously we're in like a very political climate right now, but we'll talk about. I have a video to share with y'all on why certain people of different ideologies just can't really talk with one another, and this kind of stems from things that I've said in the past, but I like the way that this content creator kind of broke it down, and I'll give my reaction to that. But also, I have a reaction to a video that talks about the military and how we promote socialism. Or no, we practice socialism in the military only to promote capitalism abroad, right? And we'll get into that. There's a dope video that this lady kind of dropped, and it kind of really does shine light into some of the things that we have going on in our country, but then why there is some like cognitive dissonance and how it just doesn't align, how much we go hard for one thing and how bad we talk about one thing only to promote something that is, I wouldn't say it's inherently bad, but it's a system that that we're kind of struggling, and it's what has put us in the current state that we're in right now. Also have a quick conversation about something that's going on in my hometown, and as it pertains to surveillance. So if you've seen some episodes in the past, I've talked about flock cameras and like this increase of flock cameras going up. Well, the city that I'm from, they've decided to like expand upon that, and it has people up in an uproar, and but on both sides, and really with that debate, just kind of trying to find the middle ground there. And what is the middle ground when it comes to surveillance and public safety, right? Because that's the argument, right? Some people, think that in the name of public safety, we should do everything that we can, but also then people understand that in the name of public safety, we often give away our civil liberties, right? And sometimes we don't realize it, sometimes we don't care about it until then the shoe, lands on the shoe lands on the other foot, and we realize like, oh, okay. That's why that was a bad thing. And then a quick review because I'm kind of currently watching it right now. But we're gonna talk about the Netflix original limited series called Black Rabbits, right? And we're gonna get into that. I don't have a full deep dive of that, but I do have just some observations and things that I kind of wanted to get into. So So yeah, if you see, man, I got the this is Latin Pride Day, right? Nationally, right? So this is when I'm kind of giving away when I'm recording this. But I got the Puerto Rico jersey. This is a Roberto Clemente. I ended up getting this on Amazon for the low ski. It's stitched on and everything. And it's crazy because I've been seeing a lot of people when I'm wearing this, and they like, yo, I didn't know you was Puerto Rican. Well, I am half Puerto Rican, and I have ink to prove it. Like I don't just do this, I mean, for fun. I'm true to this, you know what I'm saying? But no, a lot of people just like, oh, I didn't know you was Puerto Rican. And I ain't gonna lie, like people that know me know there's definitely some Hispanic in me, and I got that flavor to me. But I guess the way I present myself and the way I carry myself, it's not always that evident to people that don't know. So but yeah, so I feel good. I felt good wearing this at work today, and yeah, man, it was dope. And hopefully everybody, man, my Latin brothers is also enjoying this day and flossing the way they could, man. All right. Let's talk about the first thing, man. I said NFL surprises. So last week I started talking about a couple different surprises that I've noticed in the NFL when it comes to some teams. But we're gonna kind of expand upon that conversation a little bit and kind of maybe not a full deep dive, but get into some of these teams that are surprises. All right. So when I look at this, okay, yeah. So we're in the first 5 weeks of the season. We're this the start of like the second quarter of the season. Or there are a couple teams that kind of really stand out to me in terms of surprises especially as I was looking through the standings. Um, to be honest though, most of the standings are kind of middle of the road. When you look at a lot of these divisions, there's a lot of competition right now. Like there's a couple teams that are like fully pulling away, but then there's a lot of like middle ground there when it comes to a lot of different teams. But two teams from the same division that really stand out to me as surprises are the Colts and the Jaguars. Both of those teams sit atop of the AFC North with records of 4-1. Right? Are we four? Yeah, 4-1 because we just finished week 5. So yeah, so both of these teams sit at the top of their division at 4-1 records. So we'll talk about the Colts first, right? So the Colts, they have a 4-1 record. But when we it's impressive, right? It's great to start off hot. It's great to start off strong. But when we really dive into they are surprised, and I'll get into why they are surprised. But when you really break into the record and you dive into who they played, they've only beat one playoff team so far. And when I say playoff team, I'm talking about a team that was in the playoffs the previous year, and that was the Denver Broncos. Right? They beat the Denver Broncos in a controversial nail biter, right? The reason why this game was controversial was because they won on a last second field goal after there was a penalty on the first attempt that they took from 60 yards. They missed the field goal. There was a penalty on the play, and then they were able to get a second try from like 45 yards, right? 15 yards ahead, and then that sealed the deal. And they only beat the Broncos by 1 point. We know that the Broncos are tough because they just beat the Eagles. And we'll even talk about the Eagles too in this segment as well. But so yeah, that's the only good team that they've beat so far. All the other teams that they beat so far are teams that have not made the playoffs. The one team that they lost to is another playoff team, which is the Los Angeles Rams. So again, so we don't know for sure. It is good that they beat a good team close. It is good to win close games and ugly games. But what I've seen in recent years is it's great that these teams can win all these like close games, like because a lot of these games are going to be close in the NFL, like that's how it is. But sometimes those teams that win these close games, it doesn't necessarily translate into championships because winning in a close game is good, but also if you're the reason why the game is close because you're not playing up to par, then it does leave you vulnerable in the playoffs when you need to score points or when you need to get stops. And sometimes close games are about inconsistency. Like if you're consistent and you're dominant, you're blowing teams out. And obviously, we know there's a stigma with that too. If you're blowing everybody out, maybe you're not really tested. So it is a catch 22 there. So yeah, they beat the Broncos. Everybody else that they beat was kind of trash. They just blew out the Las Vegas Raiders, right? It was like 40-6. But a lot of their wins have been pretty solid. I'm not taking nothing away from them. So don't look at this as me taking anything away from the Colts. But they do end up playing some teams later on in the season. They don't play Jacksonville until weeks 14 and 17. So those games will definitely decide the division. That's what it looks like because the Dolphins, no, the Dolphins are not in their division. In their division, the Texans look like they've taken a step back a little bit. They're middle of the road right now. They're 2-3. And then the other team that they have in their division. So we got the Texans, the Colts, the Jaguars, oh, and the Titans. The Titans, with their rookie quarterback, finally got their first win last week. But the Titans, they just don't look like they have enough talent on that field to be very competitive. So um, but yeah, let's keep going. Still with the Colts though, their success is funny. What it's showing us is that the Colts may have just been a competent QB away from being a playoff team, right? Or being a half decent team. It looks like, man, all they needed was a quarterback that was somewhat competent, halfway competent, and it looks like they can be successful. When we look at Daniel Jones specifically, he's third in the league in passing yards, right? And then you got Jonathan Taylor, who sits on top of the league as the leading rusher, right? So, and they've always had pieces on defense. They've always been a tough team. Even last year. Last year is the year that they could have made the playoffs had they won. They had a lot of chances to make the playoffs, even though they had a revolving door of backup quarterbacks. They still had a chance to make it, but they couldn't seal the deal. Right? They could not seal the deal. But Daniel Jones, man, is like I said, he's probably not gonna end the season third in passing yards. But Daniel Jones is showing that, like, hey, man, I am a competent enough quarterback, right, to lead a team. And it's showing that maybe, the team that he was on was not surrounding him with the right pieces. And the Colts, they obviously have the bones of a decent team. And sometimes all it does take we often talk about how in the NFL one player can't necessarily change your full outcome. A quarterback can though. A quarterback can kind of carry a team a little bit because again, they are the ones that the wins and losses always fall on them, but also they are the ones that are kind of controlling the offense and kind of how things work. So shout out to the Colts, man, for their 4-1 start. And then also in that division, like we said, the Jaguars. Jaguars are currently in the tough part of their schedule. So that's why they're a little bit different than the Colts. The Colts have not played anybody, but the Jaguars have been beating good teams. Now, these are teams that might not be, they weren't necessarily playoff teams last year, but these are teams that are tough nonetheless. They beat San Francisco, right? Who they missed the playoffs last year, but we know San Francisco's tough. San Francisco is going to be one of my surprise teams later on as well. That's doing well, but they beat the 49ers. They beat Kansas City, and we could say what we want about Kansas City. You could say that they're um, maybe down a little bit. I think Kansas City is fine. They have a 2-3 record, so it doesn't look so good. But I think that Kansas City is just they're kind of more they're a little bit more average right now without some of their players, without guys like Rasheed Rice. Rasheed Rice will be back though after next week, I believe. I think that's when he can start practicing with the team. I think he had a 6-game suspension. So and we're going into week 6. And I think if you ask any Chiefs fan, all right, these 6 games without Rasheed Rice, can we go 3-3? I think you'll have a lot of fans that will say, yeah, that's all we kind of wanted. We wanted to just kind of be able to tread water, be a 500 team. But the Jaguars, yeah, they beat San Fran, they beat Kansas City. They play and in the next couple weeks they play Seattle, who is 4-1 right now. They play the Rams. They play the Broncos. Travis Etienne is one of the league leaders in rushing. And then when you look on defense, they have two. They have two of the interception leaders. So their defense is getting things done, right? Their defense is making plays and being impactful. So they're getting it done with the running game. I think Trevor Lawrence is kind of finding his way. I still look at Trevor Lawrence as the Brian Thomas stopper right now. I have Brian Thomas in my keeper league. I kept Brian Thomas. I only lost a ninth round pick when I picked Brian Thomas, so I thought this was a steal because he came in with high expectations, high projections. Last year, he was the number seven ranked fantasy wide receiver. So, of course, I'm thinking that, like, all right, I mean, even if he takes a couple steps forward, he could be, top five. I mean, he's not in that range right now, but it seems like him and Brian Thomas and Trevor Lawrence, they not fully in sync for whatever reason. And then when I look at like some of Brian Thomas's success last year, he did a lot of that type of stuff with a guy like Mac Jones because Trevor Lawrence went down semi early in the season. He missed a significant amount of time. I think Brian Thomas might be have more chemistry with a guy like Mac Jones than he does with a guy like Trevor Lawrence. But they're starting to get it together. Another surprise, the Patriots. The Patriots have been a bottom of the barrel team. I think we knew that they were gonna improve with Coach Mike Vrabel, but when they upset the Bills last week on Sunday Night Football, and the way they did it through defense, knowing that the Bills have such a high-powered offense. I think it surprised a lot of people. They finally Drake May looks like he has found his number one target. They brought Stephon Diggs in for a reason. The first 3 weeks of this year, it looked like, man, that was a waste of money, and also like maybe even like, yo, the Patriots don't know how to use Stephon Diggs. Maybe Drake May is not fully in sync with Stephon Diggs. And Stephon Diggs in the last 2 weeks has looked like Buffalo Bills, Minnesota Vikings version of Stephon Diggs, and he's been balling out, man, looking like elite receiver, and he is 31 years old. So, and he's gonna be there for like 3 years. So they've invested in his veteran presence and also skill to kind of be that leader. And if the Patriots start to win, that will become an attractive place for players to want to go. But also, if you have somebody solid, then you can kind of you can afford to have like rookies fill in some spots and to develop guys. So that's what it looks like is happening right now. So we got a couple more teams that we're going to talk about with surprises as well. All right, who else we got? Well, the Bills. The Bills, I don't think they're a surprising team that they have a good record, like that they're 4-1. It might be surprising that they got upset by the Patriots, but I think it's surprising because the Bills, like when I watch, like even when I was watching them, I guess against the Patriots, or I've watched them in a couple different like primetime games, and they really did not, they did nothing on offense, like in terms of reloading, right? They got who'd they get back? I feel like they got Gabe Davis back, but he's not really a factor at this point. They really did not, they didn't add anything. They lost Amari Cooper. They pretty much have the same core. They don't have like a true number one receiver, and it's crazy because when you have a quarterback and when you're successful, nobody cares if you have a number one receiver. Like, and it's crazy because I remember that's the thing with like the Packers. Like a lot of times people talk about the Packers and they'll be like, oh, but they don't have a true number one. Bro, if you're good, if your team is nice, it don't fucking matter if you have a number one receiver. Khalil Shakir, is he a number one receiver on anybody's team? Probably not. But they do a good job, and they're using both of their tight ends. Dalton Kincaid is having a great year. We know that they have a great quarterback, and we know that they have a really good running back right now. Probably, their running back is definitely he was the player of the month, the AFC player of the month for September. So we know that they got that. I think it's also surprising that the Bills are as good as they are is because they don't have a really good defense. This defense gives up a hell of a lot of points. right? They give up a ton of points. They give up a lot of yards. They do make stops when you think they need them the most. And I think it's weird because I don't think people look at the Bills as having a bad defense, but because I think the Bills have this identity because they've had really good defenses over the years. The Bills have this like mystique and identity that they have a good defense, but like when we look at it, like either in the box scores or really on paper, like or even the eye test, their defense is not that good. Their defense, but they still are good. So Josh Allen, James Cook, I mean, and the play calling, the coaches, they're really carrying this team, right? They do have some play. I'm not saying they don't. They have players. Everybody has players that are really good or exceptional, but they don't have like a great core of a defense. And like I said, they're giving up a lot of points. They're giving up a lot of yards. But so I think it is surprising that they're good without like a number one receiver, so to speak. I think the 49ers are a surprising team this year because of how they're winning some of these games. When you look at the 49ers, they've been without their quarterback, right? So Brock Purdy has missed a bunch of games, right? Mac Jones is undefeated right now as their starting quarterback. They've been without Brandon Ayuk. We knew that he was going to miss a chunk of the first part of the season. They've been without Pearsall. They've been without Kittle, right? And they traded Debo Samuel, so they don't even so even a guy like that, and they're still able to perform. Last week, Mac Jones went to work with Kendrick Bourne, right? So two former Patriots went to work. You know what I'm saying? Kendrick Bourne had an amazing game. Kendrick Bourne looked like Randy Moss out there. He was killing shit, bro. And I think this goes to show you that, like, bro, development, man, is may I don't want to say I guess bold take would say development. Maybe development is a lost art in the NFL. And shout out to dedicated players that have been able to, even though they've been kind of pushed to the side by many teams, um, players that have been able to kind of turn it around for themselves. And we've seen that in recent years. We've seen that, it looks like, with Sam Darnold. He was able to turn around. The biggest example, probably the best example, is Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was thrown to the wolves when he was in Cleveland with the Browns. He was kind of shipped out of there like he was damaged goods, and now he's leading the best team in the AFC South and like winning games on his back, man, putting the team on his back and winning games. So Mac Jones is another one of these guys where it's like maybe he just didn't have enough time. He was a Bill Belichick draft pick, right, with the Patriots, and like he just didn't have enough time. And that's the thing in NFL, you don't get time. You don't get time to develop. You don't get time to figure it out. You are expected to be on point and to know and to be, elite. You don't get time to just kind of figure things out. So, but shout out to Mac Jones for kind of figuring it out. If I had to look at some other teams, surprises. So we said the Colts, we said the Bills for various reasons, the Patriots for various reasons. Let's see. Maybe okay. Bills for various reasons. I mean, maybe for some people, the Packers were a surprise. I mean, Buccaneers, they're on top of their division. Atlanta's competing. Carolina's not horrible, not bottom of the barrel horrible. They're 2-3 right now. Maybe the Seahawks are 3-2. I thought the Seahawks like were 4-1. Maybe the Seahawks and their success, they're playing well. The Eagles are 4-1. And it is, like I said this last week too, that it is good for teams to be able to know how to win close games, tight games. But what I'm seeing is that it looks like teams are able to figure them out a little bit. I think what I'm seeing criticism is on the offensive coordinator. They're saying this is his first year calling plays. And I feel like last year they had a guy that was like it was his first year calling plays. So I don't was it Kellen Moore? I think yeah, Kellen. No, no. So I don't think that was Kellen Moore's first year calling plays, but Kellen Moore was their offensive coordinator. He was calling the plays. So having a new play caller this year, I mean, apparently it's not doing well. But like they're not doing the things that got them ahead last year. I just read an article about Saquon Barkley and just the wear and tear that running backs that rush for 2,000 yards, how they a lot of times they regress. I picked this guy number one in my fantasy league because I felt like, all right, the Eagles, they do a good job of maintaining their success. Like if they are a good team, they do a good job of maintaining their success. And the bulk of their success was on the back of a guy like Saquon Barkley. And so I felt like, all right, it's a win. If he goes off, then my fantasy team's gonna be good. If he's middle of the road or not so good, it's also a win for me because that means the Eagles are losing. I am an Eagle hater. I'll admit that. Um, but it seems like last week he had 30 yards rushing, but he only had 6 carries. So he averaged 5 yards a carry. I mean, he has some of his like worst stats in recent time when it comes to like yards before contact, yards after contact. Even what he's averaging very low yards per carry. So I think that is surprising. I think teams may have figured certain things out about them. They do have a ton of weapons, but a lot of people feel like they don't know how to use them. So we'll see how this kind of plays out and progresses. I think, like again, we got if you look at like the AFC West, there's a bunch of teams that are 3-2 and 2-3. You know what I'm saying? Um, if you look at if you look at the AFC North, really I mean, it looks like Pittsburgh could run away with that division. The Bengals have only lost those games that Jake Browning has started. The AFC East, you got the Bills and Patriots at 4-1 and 3-2. The NFC North is pretty highly contested. You got we're a one loss. The Packers are a one loss team. The Detroit Lions are a one loss team. Vikings, they've been able to scrap some wins together. They're 3-2. The Bears are 2-2. They just had a bye week as well. Um, yeah, man. So yeah, right now it is a little bit early to tell, but like we are seeing some teams emerge, and I think we are going to get some more surprises as this year kind of progresses, though. So, but yeah, those are the teams that kind of come to mind when I think of teams that are surprising me with their success, though. But what do you think? Leave a comment below. Who is a team that is gonna make the playoffs this year that did not make the playoffs the previous year? Now, it's easy to say a team like the 49ers because they're a team that is typically in the playoffs and like they weren't in it last year. So that's easy. So other maybe I don't want to say other than that, but like yeah, think of teams who are some teams that are bound to make the playoffs this year that did not make the playoffs last year. We talked about Baltimore last week. They're struggling. They're playing without Lamar. It's not too good, but they're 1-4. So they're hurting right now. Are they one? Yeah, let me just double check that. 1-4. Yeah, they're 1-4, man. Same record as the Browns. And the Browns' only fucking victory is against the Packers. That's crazy, bro. The Browns should be 0-5. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. What do we got next? What do we got next? Okay. So I came across this statistic and basically some stats that talked about affordability when it comes to different states and like where are like some of the best states to live in based off of these numbers, right? So it says a chart of how much it costs to live comfortably in each state has surfaced online. So when you look at the rankings though are can be misleading a little bit. I will put these graphics on the screen. I kind of need to use them so I could kind of read through certain things and I could reference certain things. But I will try to put these graphics onto the screen so people can see, especially as I'm talking about certain statistics. So what they do is they give a rank, right? They name the state, and the first column of real numbers, it tells you the income needed for a single adult in 2025. So, and again, it's meaning living comfortably. The only thing about this is that they don't necessarily define comfortable. Let's see. It says here's a caption. It says a study from Smart Asset analyze how much individuals and families living in the United States need to earn using the 50-30-20 budgeting rule. And these are the results. As an individual in any given U.S. state needs about 5,844 more. more earnings than last year to have a comfortable, sustainable budget. Families of four need an additional 9,360. So I kind of I wonder what that 50 30 20 is. Maybe like 50 is expenses. Maybe 50 is savings, 30 is expenses, and 20 is investing. I don't know. I wonder what I don't exactly know that rule or what that consists of. But maybe we'll learn and we'll kind of verify later. So let's see, like some states. Number one, so this is like the most expensive state to live in is actually Hawaii. So it says individual single in adults in 2025 to live comfortably according to that budget model, they need to be making $124,000 $124,467. And then if they have a family of four, they have a family of four, it almost triples. I won't say almost triples. It definitely doubles though, more than doubles. And if you have a family of four, so if you, your spouse, and two kids, you need to be making $294,362. So when it comes to like the family, it's the number two most expensive. But for individuals, it's the number one most expensive. Massachusetts. Let's just go through like the top five. So Massachusetts is the second most expensive with 120,141 dollars. California, you need to make almost $120,000. New York City is number four. You need to be making almost $115,000 as a single adult to live comfortably. Let's see. Washington kind of is surprising to me. Like we're like Seattle, Washington, like Washington State. You need to be making almost $110,000 as a single individual. New Jersey is pretty high at $108,000, really $109,000. Maryland is an expensive state at 108, almost 109,000. I knew Connecticut was expensive. Okay. Alaska makes the top 15. Alaska, you need to be making 100,000 $298 to live comfortably. So that was the first set of numbers. That was like the top 15. There are some states I didn't mention. I didn't mention Virginia, Colorado's in there, Oregon's in there, New Hampshire. So yeah, anything that's in the like the that northeast, like the New England, anything that's considered New England is expensive to live. California is expensive to live. New York is expensive to live. It seems like a lot of the West Coast, like especially like the northern part of the West Coast, well, yeah, the whole West Coast is expensive to live. So that's Colorado, like Colorado, California, Arizona, Oregon, makes this list. Washington makes this list. All right. So I'm from PA, right? I'm from PA. And surprisingly, PA is middle of the road when it comes to single adults. It ranks 25, so literally smack dab in the middle. And so to live comfortably as a single adult in Pennsylvania, you need to be making $95,306. Um, but it's crazy because then for a family, you need to be making 200. So yeah, this is definitely more than double, not quite triple, but not far from triple, right? You need to be making $248,435 as a family. If you have a four-person family, that's how much you need to be making. Almost $250,000 a year to be comfortable. And then when it comes to the family ranking, we're 16th, right? So still kind of middle of the road, but still in the top, if I guess, you know, yeah, top, like almost in the top 25 percentile almost. You know what I'm saying? Another state that a lot of people move to from where I'm from, a lot of people move here. They move to Georgia. Georgia ranks 17 for single adults, and it you got to make if you're a single adult in Georgia, you need to be making $99,590. However, though, if you are a four-person family, it's cheaper for families to live in Georgia with 210,829, and for families they rank 33rd. Okay. Another state that a lot of people from around my way like to move to is Florida. Florida is ranked 22 for single adults. For a four-person family, it ranks 31st. So for a single adult, you need to be making $97,000. For a four-person family, you need to be making $217,000. So when I look at Georgia, when I look at Florida, yeah, when I look at Georgia, when I look at Florida, those places they're better for if you have a family, it's cheaper. But if you're a single adult, it's cheaper to live in like Pennsylvania, right? Where is Texas at? Texas is I'm looking. Wow, and this is why people move to Texas. Wow. Texas. So for a single adult person, it ranks 30, they're 31st. So really, you know what I mean, they're on like the second half of comfortability. So it's cheap to live in Texas relatively, especially when you look at it as a state that people want to live in. So as a single adult, you need to be making $90,000, almost $91,000. As a four-person family, you need to only be making $204,000, $205,000 if you round up. And for families, it ranks 40th. So 31st is a single adult, but for families, it's 40th. Now, it's cheap to live in Texas, but like Texas got some wild laws. Texas got some wild weather. You know what I mean? Like you got, you can get on certain parts, I guess you can get tornadoes, you can get hurricanes in certain places, you can get flooding. You have extreme dry heat in certain areas, and then you got it's a red state that has a lot of things going for it that maybe people don't necessarily like, especially if you're a little bit more progressive. Michigan is a somewhat decent state in terms of single adult male. I keep about to say single adult males though, just single adults. You need to be making only $87,000 a year. You can be comfortable, and for a family, they rank 38th with $207,000. So yeah, they make it. This is like the third page here, but there's some states on here that like I just don't see as like desirable. Texas is probably the most desirable on this one, maybe Michigan, but like Wisconsin, that's a little too cold for people. But Wisconsin is ranked 37th. So it's really the inverse. I really think they should look at it as like if it's comfortable to live there, then it should be higher. But I think though the thing is some of these states where it says like it's comfortable to live or like the cost of like you don't need that much money to live, that also can indicate that maybe there's not great jobs in that state, or it's like it's kind of hard to kind of find work, or the cost of living might be down, but also the wages are probably down in some of these areas as well. But yeah, like states like Wyoming, Kansas, New Mexico, Nebraska, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri, Midwest states, but even some deep South states, Indiana, Mississippi, Louisiana. Louisiana for a single adult, it ranks 42 because you only need to make $85,000 there. Alabama, Ohio. So I think people live in Ohio. So Ohio is 40. If you're a single adult, you only got to be making a little less than $85,000 a year for your life to be comfortable. For a family, they rank 28th. You got to be making $220,000. Oklahoma is trash. Worst education in the country. Let's see the top five cheapest states for single adults are we'll start as the cheapest. West Virginia, you only need to be making about $81,000 as a single adult. Arkansas, $81,000. South Dakota, 82,000. North Dakota, 82,000, and then Kentucky, almost 84,000. And then Kentucky is very cheap for families, only 192,000. Let me see, what is the cheapest place for families? Oh, the cheapest place for families is I'm looking for whatever says 50. The cheapest place for families to live is in Mississippi. But think about that. Who the hell is moving to fucking Mississippi? Who wants to live in Mississippi, bro? So I don't know. It's interesting, man, because yeah, I know a lot of people from around my way. So in Pennsylvania, people move to Maryland, they move to Georgia, they move to Texas, they move to Florida, and they move to North Carolina. North Carolina is one of it's kind of like middle of the road. North Carolina, it's just a little bit cheaper for than Pennsylvania to live, but it's very cheap for families to live. So for a single adult, it's 93,000, just under $94,000, and then for a family, 210,000 to get you a comfortable life, and they rank 34th. So it is pretty comfortable there. So those are the places that people tend to move when they want different things. But think about the politics though in some of these places though. But what do you think? Like I said, as I put some of these graphs on the screen, what do you think? What kind of catches your eye? I do see why people move to Texas. All right. And the thing is, these things, this is in 2025, so those things can fluctuate. They can go up or down depending on the economy, depending on politics. I think certain places, obviously all these places have blue cities in them because most cities tend to be pretty liberal, tend to be blue. But these blue, like the blue dots in the red state. But it's neither here nor there. You never know. You never know what you're walking into. But yeah, if you're thinking about moving, you wanna check out this. And this is from it's from the Bish Gossip page. And it was the post where they said a chart of how much it costs to live comfortably in each state. So you might want to even check out Smart Asset to see if you can find those results, and they might even break it down a little bit further. So, what do you think, man? What do you think? Leave a comment below. All right, let's move on. And now I'm gonna share a video with y'all. And we're going to talk about why I said basically why people with certain ideologies cannot talk. So obviously we are kind of talking politically or political ideologies. And we're going to talk about why these different political ideologies have a tough time of communicating with one another. So let's hold on. Let's stop my man. Let's make sure he's loud enough that we can hear him. We're gonna, and this is one of my favorite content creators right now. And it's crazy because anybody that has like, when it comes to politics, anybody that kind of talks from like a common sense kind of point of view nowadays, everybody gets looked at as like, they get looked at as like liberal. But these are people that just are like kind of open enough to be critical, like they're critical enough. But people don't realize, man, even like quote unquote liberals are very, very critical of their own party. The only thing is with the only thing is it seems like with like the conservative party, people are not willing to criticize their own. You know what I'm saying? It's just blind loyalty, whatever. But it says here, why do Dems and Republicans struggle talking? And this is a point that I made when I was on Levi's podcast when we was on vacation. We talked about this a little bit, and I said it in much more layman's terms. But like, let's hear what our brother got to say. And this content creator, is Das Discourse. I like a lot of his videos, man. He does good work, man. So let's take a look here.
Why exactly does the politics of the 2020s feel so fundamentally and categorically different than the politics of the 2010s? You can say that it's just because Donald Trump is loud and braggy and boisterous and racist, but I really think that that's a oversimplification of the moment that we're actually in right now. Politics is a game of routes and destinations. The politics of old, the 2010s politics, the Obamas, the Clintons, the Romneys, they were sitting down and they were having routes disputes. They were having route conversations. It's kind of like when you in the car, say you with your cousins, and we going to my mama house, but one of my cousins is like, yo, take the street, and the other one's like, take the highway, and we're having a route conversation, not a destination conversation. That's what was happening in the 2010s. I'll give you an example, healthcare. One side was like, yo, look, in order for Americans to be safe and secure and not to be afraid that if they break their legs that they're going to starve to death because they can't work. I think that we should have some type of socialized healthcare. Everybody will pay into it and it'll keep people safe and secure. The other side was like, listen, in order to keep people safe and secure, to make sure that they have the healthcare they need, I think we should have private healthcare. It'll incentivize research and development, and the competition will lower the price of the healthcare. Did you hear the common ground in that? Both parties were like, the end goal, the destination was safety and security. Now the conversation is like this. One side's like, I think everybody deserves safety and security in healthcare. And the other side's like, nah, everybody doesn't deserve that. Certainly not the people who don't look like me. That's a destination dispute. And it's fundamentally different. This switch in the core conversation is actually what's driving the gun debate in America. One side is saying, I want to achieve public safety. The other side is saying, I want access to firearms, even if it is to the detriment or the denigration of public safety. Do you understand what I'm saying? Watch this clip real quick.
If it did statistically save children's lives, should we have more gun control?
No.
Did you see that? Even in a hypothetical world where it was 100% proven that removing access to firearms would increase public safety, this man said no, because increasing public safety is not his goal. And it's not the goal of many Republicans. It's not their destination. And this is why it's becoming increasingly difficult for us to even speak to one another, because we're not arguing over the path, we're arguing over the purpose. We're not arguing over how to get there, we're arguing over where are we going, and should we even be going there together?
That's a bar. That's a bar. Hold on 1 second, y'all. 1 second. We're about to stop sharing the screen real quick. That's a bar. Well, so I was trying to find a clip where Levi and I are talking a little bit about politics, and basically, I'm kind of expressing something that's similar to what Das Discourse presented, and basically, my premise was the fact that like, yo, politics used to be something that like people that were involved in politics or people that like knew about politics. Um, I no, people that were involved in politics were actually people that knew about politics, right? Like it was boring. It was like it was something that like people didn't really want to dive into, but those were probably like the best times. And now it's weird because I don't want to say like, yo, people should not be informed and people should not be out there and understanding what's going on. I wouldn't advocate for that because I feel like that is very regressive. So I wouldn't advocate for that. But at the same time, no, at the same time, politics were a lot different. Like there wasn't this big divide between Democrats and Republicans. Like Das Discourse said, we generally had the same destination, right? And I'm not gonna say it was always like that. Like I'm not gonna say like, but in my lifetime, like in my early lifetime, and I would say probably like pre-Obama. So probably pre before 2008, right? So I was on this earth for 20 years, right? And I'm able to like look back. I mean, even though I was only able to vote, like Obama was my first election, presidential election for me to vote in. But when I look back, right, when you look back at politics, it was all generally was the same direction that people were trying to go into, but it was just about like how to get there, right? Like he's saying, it wasn't destinations that we were arguing about. It was routes, right? We were arguing like, no, we want this, but no, we want to do it this way. No, we want to do it this way. But ultimately, the end goal was very similar. Today, the end goal could not be further from similar, right? It is completely different. And a lot of times, right, we have in politics, we have a lot of people that are willing to basically shoot themselves in the foot if it means to prevent certain people from getting progress, from certain people from getting rights, from certain people to get freedom, right? We're willing to hurt ourselves as a country if it means that he or she or whatever, what I mean, no matter what color they like, if he or she cannot also access this, then it's fine. Like I'm fine with like people don't want gun control. People don't want gun control. People don't necessarily, they don't want gun control. Um, when it comes to like immigration and stuff like that, it's like even though we want our economy to be better, right? We say that, but we really don't because we're willing to do things that's gonna like detrimental, exponentially be detrimental to our economy. So we're willing to ship off all these different people that are undocumented, that are taxpayers, that and I mean that, and we could say that work the jobs we don't want to work, whatever, but they're taxpayers. They are part of the tax base, and they're not bleeding the system, right? We got a lot of half truths and misinformation out there talking about how like immigrants get this and they get health care and this and that. It's like, no, there literally has been laws that have been passed that say that you have to be a citizen, you have to have certain documentation to get those things. These people are undocumented, right? Not meaning that they're not attractive, but they're undocumented. They don't have social security numbers. They have something else. They have another way, but that's how they pay taxes. But that doesn't allow them to um it doesn't allow them to get access to like a lot of our services that we enjoy. But we are losing money left and right. We're putting tariffs and all, like it's a bunch of things, like, so our destinations are not the same. Like, there's certain people that want control. It's other people that want equity, and they want everybody to have a stake in everything. But there's other people that's like, no, we want control. We want to say who gets anything, period. So yeah, man, that's why Democrats and Republicans can't talk to each other. We want completely different destinations. When back in the day, we used to just argue about what was the best way to get to the same destination. But now we want to go in different places altogether. So, what do you think, man? Leave a comment below. Leave a comment below if you got some insight. You got something you want to add to that part of the conversation. All right. All right. All right. I got another video I'm going to share. And this is about the military and how the military, as much as people love the military, right? As much as people will advocate for the troops and just that lifestyle, like a lot of people will advocate that, like, yo, it's a good idea for you to join the military and for you to get involved in that manner and for you to fight for your country and things like that. But like, think about the systems that are in the military, right? Think about how we take care of our soldiers while they're in the military. Because remember, we don't necessarily take care of all our soldiers when they get out of the military, but when they're in the military, like, we take care of them a certain way. But then the way we take care of our military is not how we want everyone in the whole country to be taken care of, right? And for whatever reason it is, but let's take a look at this. I don't know if anybody's ever looked at it this way, but this is very telling, right? All right, so let me share the screen here. Let me share the screen. And this is why, like, you understand certain groups don't join the military because it doesn't match their worldview. All right, so here it goes. It says a veteran said the U.S. offers soldiers socialism to go abroad to defend capitalism, right? So we live in a capitalistic society. Socialism, I don't think people really know what socialism is. I'm not here necessarily to advocate for socialism, but when we think about the way we take care of our soldiers, that don't match how we take care of even our less fortunate here in the States. All right, so let's take a look here.
From well-established, healthy families don't join the military. Poverty is the #1 recruiting tool of the military. They specifically target poor, low-income neighborhoods for a reason. The reason that we don't have access to socialized healthcare, subsidized housing, and all of these other things that the military offers is because that is their selling tool to people to say, hey, you may not be eating 3 meals a day while you're in your rural hometown and in your school, but guess what? Join the military and you're going to have access to 3 meals a day, housing, healthcare, of steady paychecks. I saw a veteran that said America offers soldiers socialism to go abroad and defend capitalism because the things that this country will never offer to them, just as normal civilians, is access to subsidized housing, healthcare, steady paychecks. And then majority of the time, the people who are in the military or come out of the military tend to vote right-wing Republican. they vote against their own interests when they have directly benefited from socialism. You are a good parent and you teach your children values and you encourage them to go to college and you give them a nice, healthy environment. Their first thought is not going to be, let me go join the military. You know who is going to think that they want to go straight into the military? People who come from poverty, children who come from broken homes, children who come from parents who don't give a shit about them, about their education, people who feel like they have always been put down because they are made to believe that they are not a part of anything. And then when you look at the type of people who come into the military and out of the military, this completely makes sense. Children who come from well-established, healthy families don't join the military.
Yeah, that was our first point. Then it got cut off the first time we ran through it. But yeah, think about that, man. Think about that. Think about everything that we do for our soldiers, which is I don't think is not deserved. But think about everything that we do for our soldiers and the way we live, and yeah, they do get free housing when they're there. They are getting free food. They make a little. They don't make a lot of money, whatever, but they make enough money because since they don't have to worry about basic needs, which is like food and shelter, they make money that they can kind of stack up whatever and save, and then when they get out, they have opportunities for free reduced education. They have preference when it comes to jobs, right? They also get definitely very great loans at extremely low interest rates, if any interest rates, when it comes to like getting like a house. So they get a certain level if you file for VA benefits, right? You get a certain level of health care that's not necessarily provided to everybody. Now, a lot of people will argue about the VA and like those health care benefits, but like you get access to that type of stuff, that health care that we talking about, that universal free health care. You get access to that when you are in the military, but like we almost would never do that for our regular citizens, right? Like universal basic income, right? That would be like what soldiers are making while they're on base. We would never do that. We call that socialism. We would never provide mass wide like housing for people that can't afford to pay to live somewhere. These soldiers, because a lot of them come from nothing, they wouldn't be able to afford to live where they're living. And then they don't have to pay for food, right? So they got all these different services, but like we don't want to feed the homeless. We don't want to house the homeless, right? And then we don't want to give like major discounts and subsidies for higher education, right? But we'll do that for our soldiers. And yes, there is a give and take, and maybe some people would say that other people haven't earned it, but the system that we're defending, what soldiers are defending, is a system that has put people, that has made people homeless, that has made people feel that they cannot afford food, it has made people feel like they can't afford higher education and they can't move up, right? But again, you give us some, give us your life, whatever, give us, your time, then you can get all those different things. And it just seems to be a little bit ass backwards. And the fact that, yes, what she said first is like wealthy families, high middle class families, they don't really have kids that are going to the military. Now, if you have a big family, and you have a big middle class family or wealthy family, you might have one kid that decides to go because they see some type of advantage in it. Or you might have somebody that already gets a degree and then they go in later, right? But like, yeah, if you're talking about the average person is not middle class though. So I think there is a misnomer there when we talk about middle class, because I think a lot of people assume that they're middle class when they're not. Middle class does not mean average. Middle class is because where the average is and where like middle class income is not necessarily the same. Like where the poverty line and what it means to be homeless is not even the exact same. You know what I mean? So so I think people have this misconception that like oh, the average person is middle class, and it's they're not. The average person is who they're targeting, right? Low income, poor families, and those are the ones. And the thing is, maybe that's something that we preach to our kids, that hey, what I mean, you could help our family get out of this situation, or you could help your future family, because you're probably not destined to go. A lot of times when they talk about socioeconomic status, like people don't typically move up to new statuses. They kind of stay where they were born at for the most part. But the military is that stepping stone. But there could be other things in place outside of the military, that's outside of that military industrial complex, that helps people get a leg up. But like we don't want to do that. We like, because we think that socialists, we think, and then people say use communists and stuff like that. It's not those things, man. But we have the ability, we have the money, we have the resources to take care of all our people, but we would rather not, because the previous topic, we ain't going to the same destination, right? So different destinations, man. So what do you think? What do you think? Leave a comment below. What do you think, man? Is there some truth to that? I know some people that close to me that definitely agree with what this lady was saying. And they can relate. They could definitely relate. All right. Next topic, and then we're gonna give our review, or just kind of talk about Black Rabbits a little bit. So, all right, this is something that's kind of developing right now, currently in my city, and well, my hometown, the city that I come from. So I'm not from the biggest area, right? But I am from, it's a city, man. Like Pennsylvania got a lot of different cities, and some cities are small. So there's a lot of crime. Historically, there's a lot of crime in my hometown. And I don't live in my hometown anymore, but I'm there often. I work in my hometown though. And I'm in the next city over. And there has been a lot of crime over the years. I think when you're not connected to it anymore, sometimes it can feel like it's less. Sometimes it can feel like it's more, because you're just on the outside looking in. You can't fully gauge it, right? So probably a couple months ago, I made a post about flock cameras, right? I made a post about like surveillance, and how like that's like an increasing thing in a lot of places where the cops are putting up these flock cameras. And a lot of times we look at them like they're supposed to be used for like catching like speed, and like like for traffic purposes. But the way that they place these things in these different areas, it doesn't make it as if it's for just traffic, right? Like it becomes a thing where police departments are using these cameras, these flock cameras that many times were originally made for traffic. They're using it to solve other crimes. Now, that's cool. Like if it's that's cool if, like, if we're talking in context, like it's a high speed chase and we're trying to identify the route in which somebody went, whatever. But like just in general, like if we're starting to peer into those cameras and like trying to analyze everybody who's driving and trying to see what they got in their car and this and that, and it's giving like the tip to the local department, or the local department can see it, and they can see everything, and then they start pulling people over because they know you have something that maybe you shouldn't have. Now, if you've ever done anything that you weren't supposed to do, anything that could be deemed illegal, right? And there's a lot of things that could be deemed illegal. If you ever done anything like that, you realize that, like, the cops don't really stop crime, right? They don't really stop things from happening. They don't, because they're unaware of things happening. So like if you're cool with the police being aware of everything, then you are for a police state, for example. Like you're cool with Big Brother. You're cool with that. Like you're fine giving up your freedom, your privacy, your civil liberties. You're okay with it if you think that's the way to go. But a lot of people feel that, like, no, that's an infringement. Like it's like there's a way that people got to do things. Police, the way they solve and figure out things are through witnesses, and now it's through surveillance. But it's like, to what extent? If I'm not hurting anybody, why can't I do certain things that I want to do? Now, it makes it sound like I'm arguing for criminality, but I'm not. I'm just saying, like, some of these things, depending on who's in charge of these things, who has access to these things, some people are some people are actively malicious against other people, but some people, they, it might be like a more implicit and unintentional consequence that's going to harm people and they don't realize it. So in my city, right, there already are cameras, but they're proposing, like, this big city council meeting was held, and they plan on, like, expanding the surveillance, right, in the city, like, and spending a lot of money and putting cameras everywhere. Now everybody is, like, up in arms about it. So there's a lot of people that are, I feel like what I've seen, there is a lot of people that are saying, like, it's an invasion of privacy, it's not, it's against our rights, our civil rights. And then there's a lot of people that are saying, like, no, like, what are you talking about? Like, these are solutions to solving crime. So why are we not with the solutions, right? Why are we not supporting that? Like, if y'all want things to change, this is what they're trying to implement, and y'all are, turning your nose up at it, and you're denying the impact that it can have. There's nothing wrong with wanting safety, whatever, but we have to tread lightly when we talk about wanting safety, because we've already given up a lot of our of our privacy. We've given up a lot of our civil liberties because of fear, right? Like, it's fear mongering. Like, people might say it's fear mongering to be suspicious of police officers and law enforcement and the government, but it's also fear mongering to take specific isolated incidents and to make a overarching change when it could be some, like, little changes that take place. But if we're trying to give up a lot to gain a little bit, that's not good, right? So like I said, people are talking about this. People are saying, like, yo, these cameras could be go against the Fourth Amendment, um which is the right against unlawful searches and seizures, right? So basically, yeah, it's it doesn't just pertain to your house, whatever, but, like, unreason, like, you shouldn't be unreasonably, like, we don't live in, like I said, we don't live in a police state. We don't have the Gestapo. That's why, like, stop and frisk is, like, illegal now, you know what I mean? But, like, because that, a lot of times, that's against the Fourth Amendment. Like, you don't get to, like, you don't get to search what's in my pockets for no reason. Like, you got to have a reason for it, and it can't be because of the color of my skin. You know what I'm saying? So people feel that the cameras invite that. They invite an infringement of the Fourth Amendment. But when I was seeing people arguing, I think a lot of people don't understand the part about the civil rights. They don't understand how making something quote unquote safe could be a violation. So the best example I can give you is the Patriot Act, right? Everybody knows the Patriot Act. So when 9/11 happened, everybody, the whole country was in massive fear of another attack, whatever. And what we did was, right, because of fear, and, you can believe in conspiracies about 9/11, that, like, it was our government anyway. You can believe that, right? You could believe it was our government. Um, but what we did overall was that fear, we let our guard down, right? And in the name of safety, what we did was we gave up a lot of our privacy. We gave up a lot of our own rights. And it's things that we complain about today. The things that we complain about today when it comes to our government and law enforcement, it's things that we gave away a long time ago, right? So again, using the example of the Patriot Act. So when the Patriot Act passed, I don't think people, like, there was always airport security, but I don't think people realized the TSA was created in November of 2001. So the attacks were in September, and in November they created the TSA. So people would argue that, like, the way we fly today, and, like, some of the measures that they go through, like, yes, it is protecting people from terrorism, I guess, whatever. But, like, we gave up a lot of our like we got to take like we had there's a long time we had to take off our shoes and you can't travel with certain amounts of liquid now, right? Whatever because of TSA. Like it was a totally different ball game, and I was too young to fly or to understand what flying was like prior to 9/11. So 9/11, I was 13 years old, but like I don't remember flying nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't have no vivid memories of going anywhere. I think I started traveling places like probably when I was like 10th grade actually. But yeah, so people don't remember that, but the TSA was created by that. Now the NSA, the National Security Agency, that was a thing since the 50s, but what we did was with the Patriot Act, we allowed like the surveillance of like phones and video and stuff like that. We allowed when everybody says like, oh, the government's already listening to your conversations and they can tap into the speakers and they can, tap into the cameras and watch you and stuff like that. That started because of the Patriot Act, right? That started because we were so fearful that we said, go ahead, government, go ahead. No, do your thing, man. Just protect us, protect us. But then they were like, all right, you want us to protect y'all, but then you got to give it. It's like we signed terms and conditions for an app, and we didn't read the terms and conditions. And a lot of the terms and conditions, we gave them the permission to do all those things. So we cannot complain about the government listening to our conversations and doing this and whatever. Now, maybe I could complain because I wasn't old enough to vote, but like collectively, the adults are boomers. They cannot complain. Our older generations cannot complain about those things because and whether or not they knew what was happening, whatever, we gave you elected officials or politicians that didn't explain certain things to you, but you put them in position so they could kind of, you know, make these basically these big brother laws of surveillance or whatever. So like we can't say that, oh, they're already watching us, but then when a local government and a local entity is trying to do something similar, we're just willing to say, like, oh, they already doing it. No, we've accepted on a federal level that there's going to be some level of surveillance on us, right? But we say this all the time, that local governments and your communities are way more impactful to your everyday life than the federal government. So, like, why would we give all this power and all the surveillance opportunities and access? Why would we give the to our local governments, right? And I liked a lot of what a lot of people were saying was like you don't realize is like once you start giving up your privacy and your rights and stuff like that, then you don't even own things anymore. The more you give away. So yes, we can argue in the city there might be some bad things going on, but like I think we would rather have community policing to where like there's more de-escalation when it comes to law enforcement and understanding and like building up the community from the ground up as opposed to having police have a bird's eye view of everything that's going on. I would feel more safe if our communities were more built up from the ground and we're working together as opposed to giving the police more control as what they can do. So again, I don't think people realize what they're willing to give up when they are agreeing to certain things. But like overall, I do think that an expansion of surveillance, it can be good, it can be bad. I think what people are worried about, because in this particular instance, I think that the people that are either putting up the cameras or funding the cameras or who have access to the cameras, it's not necessarily just law enforcement. It is these other entities, and then people are concerned. It's like we just all right. If we're gonna agree to this, because we didn't do that good of a job with the Patriot Act, right? But if we are gonna agree to something like this, we want oversight. We want to know who has access to the information or this surveillance. What are they planning on doing with it, right? And then when and where can they utilize this surveillance footage, right? Like it cannot just be in anybody's hands, and it cannot be used with impunity. It got to be used specifically, and there has to be probable cause. I think a lot of people would agree with that. But what do you think, man, just in general about surveillance and privacy and sacrificing your privacy for safety or and vice versa, sacrificing your safety in order to have more privacy? What do you think about those different things? Let me know in the comment section below. I know my people locally, hopefully they tap into this topic and chime in, whatever. But yeah, man. So, all right, last topic, last thing. I've been watching some things. I haven't watched anything in full other than him. I haven't watched anything in its entirety. I'm trying to find a better cycle to watch TV. But the latest series that I'm in the middle of watching, I'm almost done watching it. I'm on like maybe the last two episodes. It's a Netflix original series. It's a limited series, so that means that there might be a season two. There might not be. It might just end here. But it's called Black Rabbits, and it stars Jude Law. It stars Jude Law, and it stars Jason Bateman. Right. So we know Jason Bateman from Ozark. We also know him from Arrested Development. We also know him from a bunch of different movies and films, whatever. So Jason Bateman is an amazing actor. And this story is very interesting, right? This show, Black Rabbits. I even like the symbolism and like I like the title because of what it means and stuff like that. Which I'm not gonna get into that because that's not neither here nor there. But this story basically though is about like two. This show is about two brothers who couldn't be like they appear to be the polar opposites of one another, right? They appear to be polar opposites. So you have one who is kind of like, well put together. He's the owner of this restaurant slash club, and he's willing and dealing. He's doing a bunch of things. And then you got Jason Bateman, who is like the degenerate brother who has had opportunities to be successful with his brother Jude Law, but he's kind of squandered a lot of those opportunities, and he's a fuck up, and he's piece of shit, whatever, right? And basically, Jason Bateman's character's the fuck up. He basically puts everybody in jeopardy, right? And he does something that gets the ball rolling. That's gonna make everybody's lives a little bit more difficult. So he puts everybody in danger, and he jeopardizes everybody's lives to a certain extent, right? And the problem is though, Jude Law, and he's the older. I think he's the younger brother. Jude Law's character, he he kind of enables Jason Bateman to be a fuck up, right? So that's what we learn, right? But then so it seems like they're polar opposites, and then you see it seems like one character is just like helping the other character out immensely. But then we shortly find out as the story goes on is that no, this is a show about two piece of shit brothers, right? It ain't that Jason Bateman ain't the only piece of shit brother. Jude Law is also a piece of shit brother. Like he's a piece of shit. Both of them are degenerates. It's just that Jude Law knows how to present it in a clean way, right? He's able to. I don't want to say they both deceive people, but he's able to kind of keep up with appearances, as opposed to Jason Bateman character. Like he's lost the trust of everybody, and because people have seen his fuck ups over the years, like they don't give him the benefit of the doubt. The reason what makes Jude Law's character a piece of shit is the fact that he does enable him, and it's almost like like somebody says it in the show that he's addicted to his brother. But this show is lit, man. There's a lot of crime. They got a boss on this show, like a crime boss that's deaf, bro. And like this is a tough motherfucker, man. Like this dude, he can't speak, man. Like he's a deaf mute, basically. You don't hear him making no audible noises, but he giving all his orders. Let me stop playing with sound, but he giving all his orders in sign language, right? And it's just tough when it's like, damn, bro, like you so tough that like I ain't never see it. Like I never seen that. I never seen that level of like toughness from a deaf person. But think about like this guy has like an organization. So like you have tons of people that know how to communicate with you and like live in your world, and like you're the boss though, and like yeah, I mean it don't matter that you can't talk. Like you are who you are, and you stand on business, whatever. So it's that. There's a lot of deception, man. There's people, and also what makes Jude Law's character is a piece of shit because he enables his brother, but also he don't know how to let go, right? So even when the ship is sinking, right, he's the type of person that he will not let you off the ship. He will not tell you that, yo, you need to get on the emergency raft to save yourself. No, he the type of dude that's gonna pull you down with him, and he's gonna fake the funk until he can get in a semi decent position. He gonna fake it till he makes it, right? The other dude, Jason Bateman's character, he don't fake it. He is what he is. He's very smart. So people like kind of are willing to gamble on his intelligence, but a lot of times he don't got no follow through, and things always fuck up, whatever. But again, I'm on like the last two episodes. I I think it's a show that's definitely worth watching. That shit is fire. That show is fire. And hopefully you can see what I'm talking about when I talk about these two degenerate brothers. When I get done with the series, I'll get into more detail and I can kind of spoil it a little bit. But like this is more enticing for the people that wanted to see it, haven't seen it, and I feel like I didn't give nothing away, or whatever. I just kind of described some characters, but like yeah, this story is layered, man. And like even this, I'll give you this. We know that Jason Bateman's character is a piece of shit, right? But what we learn why he's a piece of shit. So this is a flashback scene, and I'm the spoiler alert. So what we learn is that like they seem to have an estranged relationship with their father. Their father gets mentioned, and like we don't see the father, whatever. Apparently, he passed away when he was younger. So there's a scene that we see, and basically it's when they're children, and the father is beating on their mother, right? He's abusing his mom, and apparently their dad is a degenerate gambler. Like he's lost, he can't pay no debts. His name is tarnished around the city, and he takes it out on his wife. Right? They have an argument that has to do with some of his degeneracy, some of his gambling, and he gets mad at her, and he's starting to take it out on her. Well, Jason Bateman's character is a young kid. He sees his parents arguing two flights down the stairs, right? And and as he's about to like finish his mom off, I don't know what he's about to do to his mom, but he's like, all right, you asked for it. Like he's probably gonna go in for the killing blow. And Jason Bateman's character drops a bowling ball on his head. And so Jude Law's character, when he's a kid, he's sleeping through all this. He doesn't even see it. The deaf guy that I'm talking about, he was a part of their lives for a long time, whatever. And he helped to basically dispose of the body. And Jason Bateman's character like knows of this, whatever. So it makes sense as to like why he is who he is. This man killed his own, like he killed his own dad. He's had to live with it, right? Like he's had to live with that guilt and shame and fear, right? But also he's had to keep this a secret from his brother his whole life. And if you add to the fact that their dad was already a degenerate, so like some of that type of like bad habits probably got passed down to them. But on top of that, he has this childhood, like this very um detrimental childhood trauma that he's experienced. But then he's probably keeping the biggest secret that you could probably keep from somebody. He's keeping that secret to himself his whole life. And so it's like you wonder, no wonder he is the way he is. But I definitely recommend watching that show, man. Check it out. I've been watching the Steve Harvey show, which is funny. That's more of like a passive watching show. I want to watch the Ed Gein story, starring Charlie Hunnam, aka Jax Teller from Sons of Anarchy. Like this looks like a really good show. I have been watching the Dallas Cowboys documentary. I kind of took a break on that, but yeah, man, we're about to get into the fall season is underway. I know All American will come back. I'll probably talk a little bit about that. But yeah, this Black Rabbit show, I don't want to give too much away, but it is something that everybody should kind of check out. But it is on Netflix. But yeah, what do you think, man? What do you think about this week's episode? We definitely talked about football. We talked about ideologies, why different people with different ideologies can't talk to one another. We're talking political ideologies. We're talking about the military and the message that they kind of send and how it doesn't reflect what our country kind of currently looks like. Talking about Black Rabbits, a lot about the NFL and surprise teams. What else do we have this episode? Yeah, so most comfortable cities to live in terms of affordability, and then we did talk this conversation about surveillance, privacy versus safety, right? So leave a comment below, man. I'm glad to be with y'all for another week, man. Thank you for rocking with me as long as you've been rocking with me. If you're still watching the show, I need you to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications to keep you up to date with all the drops that we got going on. And follow me on Instagram, follow me Facebook, Twitter, follow me on all social media platforms. This is episode 210 of the 280 Plus podcast. I'm your host, Los Def. I appreciate y'all, man. I'm out. Peace.